Back in the day, when Israel was scrapping to become a real kingdom, a kid named Abner, son of Ner, came up in the tribe of Benjamin. Born into a family tied to royalty, his pops was kin to Saul, the guy who'd later be Israel's first king. Abner grew up surrounded by warriors. He soaked up tales of judges, battles, and enemies circling like vultures. This wasn't no soft life. It was blood, sweat, and strategy. Young Abner watched soldiers train, saw the wounded limp back, heard elders plot to keep Israel standing. His eyes were sharp, taking it all in. By the time he was grown, he was built like a tank. Reflexes quick. Courage, cold as a winter night in the Bronx. Abner wasn't just muscle, though. He learned early that war's a chess game, not just a brawl. You gotta think 3 moves ahead, or you're done. When Samuel, that old-school prophet with a voice like a subway rumble, rolled into Benjamin, everything shifted. He announced God's pick for King Saul, a tall dude with a presence that shut down rooms. The people went wild. And Abner, he felt a spark, like destiny was calling his name. Saul took the throne. And Abner, his cousin, didn't just sign up as a soldier. He became the top dog, commander of the king's army, the guy calling shots when swords clashed. Time turned Abner from a hungry kid into a straight-up legend. He wasn't just leading troops. He was Saul's right hand, the brain behind victories, the blade that carved out Israel's reputation. His name rang out, making Philistines shake in their sandals. War was his world, swords banging, men dropping, the air thick with dust and blood. But Abner thrived in it. He could read a battlefield like a tabloid, every move calculated, every order backed by years of grinding. His men didn't just follow him, they'd ride or die for him. When Abner raised his spear, it was like, "We got this." Even enemies whispered his name with respect, knowing Israel's commander didn't play. But war ain't just out there on the field. Trouble was brewing inside the kingdom, sneaky like a rat in the subway. While Abner was holding it down against the Philistines, a new player stepped up. David, a shepherd kid who took down Goliath with a sling and some stones. Abner clocked him right away. He could spot a warrior that fire in the eyes, the way a guy grips his weapon. David had it, but he had something else too, something bigger, like God's hand was on him. When David dropped Goliath, Abner was there, watching the Philistine giant hit the dirt. The soldiers' jaws dropping, the vibe shifting. David wasn't just a hero. He was a threat to everything Abner had built with Saul. See, Saul started out hyping David up, but that didn't last. The kid kept racking up wins, and the people loved him, chanting his name louder than Saul's. Abner saw the king's face change. Pride turned to paranoia. Saul wasn't just scared of losing the throne. He was scared of being forgotten. Envy's a hell of a drug. And Saul was hooked. Abner, loyal to a fault, had to navigate this mess. He'd bleed for Saul, but now the king was plotting against one of his own, and Abner had to figure out where he stood. Things got ugly fast. Saul's palace turned into a pressure cooker, mistrust thick as summer heat. One night, Saul lost it, chucking a spear at David during a fit. The kid dodged. The spear stuck in the wall, and the room went dead quiet. Abner, standing there, saw it all. His king, the guy he'd followed for years, was trying to murk a loyal soldier. David split, and Abner knew this wasn't just a guy running for his life. It was the start of a whole new war. One Saul couldn't win. Saul went full-on obsessed, hunting David like a dog. He sent Abner and the army to chase him through deserts, caves, wherever. Abner led the hunt, but it weighed on him. The Philistines were still out there, itching to crush Israel. But Saul only cared about David. The king called him a traitor, a throne stealer. But Abner knew better. David never once raised a hand against Saul. Dude had respect, even when Saul didn't deserve it. Every time Abner's men came back empty-handed, it was clear David was slick, always a step ahead. Then came a night that flipped the script. Saul's camp was asleep, guards slacking. David sneaked in, got right up to Saul, and could have ended him. Instead, he grabbed Saul's spear and water jug, then bounced. At dawn, he shouted from a hill, holding up the gear, showing everyone he spared the king's life. Abner stood next to Saul, feeling the truth hit like a brick. Saul wasn't chasing a rebel, he was chasing a guy God had already picked. The soldiers looked at Saul, waiting for a response. But Abner knew the king wouldn't back down. The hunt kept going. War with the Philistines didn't stop, though. They came hard at Mount Gilboa, and Abner fought like always, sword swinging, trying to hold the line, but it was a slaughter. Israel's army got crushed. Saul's sons dropped one by one, and Saul himself was done wounded, cornered, hopeless. Rather than let the Philistines take him, he fell on his sword. Abner saw it. The king he'd served reduced to a broken man. Israel was in chaos, the throne empty, and Abner wasn't about to let it all collapse. There was still Ishbosheth, Saul's surviving son. He wasn't no warrior, didn't have Saul's fire, but he was the heir, and Abner wasn't giving up on the family. He crowned Ishbosheth king over the northern tribes, holding the kingdom together by sheer will. Down south, David was already king of Judah, and just like that, Israel split two kings, two armies, one big mess. Abner was the real power behind Ishbosheth, keeping the north loyal, but he knew it was a shaky setup. The split turned bloody quick. Abner's army clashed with David's at Gibeon, led by Joab, David's ruthless commander. It started with a friendly duel, 12 guys from each side squaring off. But it went south fast. All 24 dead in minutes. That sparked a full-on battle. Old allies, now enemies. Abner fought like a beast. But David's men were hungrier. Joab's brother Asahel, fast as a cab dodging traffic, zeroed in on Abner, chasing him down. Abner warned him, "Back off, kid!" But Asahel wouldn't quit. With no choice, Abner spun and drove his spear through him. Asahel dropped, and Abner knew he'd just made a lifelong enemy in Joab. The battle was a loss. Abner called a retreat, his men scattering. Joab's crew was out for blood. But the war between Saul's house and David's was far from over. Years dragged on, and Abner started seeing cracks. Ishbosheth was weak, no leader, barely holding the throne. Then the kid crossed a line, accusing Abner of sleeping with one of Saul's concubines, a move that screamed, "You trying to take my crown." Abner was done. After all he'd done, this was the thanks he got. He made a call that'd change everything. He'd flipped to David. Abner rolled to Hebron. No army, no weapons, just a man ready to end the war. He met David, laid it out. "I'll bring the northern tribes to you. One kingdom, one king." David was in. They shook on it. A deal to unite Israel. Abner left, thinking he'd pulled off the biggest play of his life. But Joab wasn't having it. He hadn't forgotten Asahel's blood. To him, Abner wasn't a peacemaker. He was a traitor. Joab sent word, luring Abner back to Hebron on some fake urgent biz. When Abner showed, Joab pulled him aside and stuck a blade in his gut. No warning, no honor, just cold revenge. Abner, the guy who'd fought for Israel his whole life, went down in the dirt. David was pissed. He mourned Abner, gave him a hero's burial, made it clear this wasn't on him. Abner didn't deserve to die like a fool. He said, leading the procession, Joab thought he'd settled a score, but all he did was stain his hands. Abner's death wasn't just a murder. It was a lost chance for peace. The guy who'd held Saul's kingdom together, who tried to bridge the divide, got cut down before he could see it through. Abner's story is raw. He was loyal to Saul, even when Saul lost it. He propped up Ishbosheth even when it was a losing hoe. And when he saw the bigger picture, he bet it all on peace, only to get betrayed. It's like hustling your whole life for a cause, only to get clipped by someone who can't let go of a grudge. Abner wasn't perfect, but he was real a warrior who knew when to fight and when to stop, even if it cost him everything.